Shalom, shalom. Today we're going to take an in-depth look at the rainbow, or the bow in the sky, and what it reveals from an ancient Hebrew perspective about Yah and about our own lives. Let's start in Revelation 10, verse 1. And I saw another strong messenger coming down from the Shemaim, robed in a cloud, and a rainbow on his head. And his face was like the sun, and his feet like columns of fire. We'll read the whole chapter in context in a few slides. But first I want to look at a couple words in this verse just to get some perspective on what and whom we're speaking of. We see in the Greek that it's Strong's G2776, probably from the primary word kapto, in the sense of seizing, the head as the part most readily taken hold of, literally or figuratively. When tracing this word back, one of the places we find it is in Daniel 7:9, actually speaking of Yah himself, and his head was as pure wool. Reading it in the King James Version with the Strong's numbers, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. So we see that's the Hebrew 72:17. When looking that up in the Strong's, we see it's Resh in the Chaldee, corresponding to 72:18, the head, figuratively, the sum. When you trace this word back, you can also see it goes to the Strong's H72:18, which is not in the Aramaic, it actually is in the Hebrew. And the 72:18 Rosh, from an unused root, apparently meaning to shake, the head, as most easily shaken, whether literally or figuratively, in many applications of place, time, rank, etc. In tracing this back to the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon by Jeff Benner, which I encourage everyone to get their own copy of, we find it at 1458 DN. In the N, if we see from right to left, it's a Resh, an L, and a Shin, head, top of the body, a person in authority, or role of the leader, the top beginning or first of something. We see it's in Hebrew and Aramaic. At the three-letter child root, we see it's Resh, same three letters. The concrete is the head. At the two-letter parent root, we see it's the Resh Shin. The action is to inherit, the concrete is head. The pictograph Resh is a picture of the head. The head of the tribe, chief, or family, father, is passed from generation to generation. The head grants permission for betrothal of his daughter and determines the inheritor of the tribe or family, the head of a person, place, thing, or time. Pretty much describes Yah himself, the head of the body, the head of the people, the head of every place, and the head of time. Kind of want to look at him in the very beginning. Psalm 119, verse 160. The word is true, truth, from the beginning. There's our word. And every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever. So who was in the beginning? If the word is truth, and Yah who came to rescue us is the truth, Yah is the truth is from the beginning. In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, the word, the truth himself from the very beginning was the truth. So when we look at this word beginning, what do we see there? We see it at 1458 DN4, same family root. It's on the bottom of the screen. Beginning, the head of a space, such as the head of a river, or time, such as an event. Okay, he is since the beginning. And as we can see there, reading from right to left, beginning begins with a Resh. He was the head from the very beginning. He is the head in Revelation chapter 10. He's always been the head of the body. He will determine who inherits everlasting life. He determines who is betrothed to him. and who will be his bride. So that's just a quick look at the head so we can see whose head this bow is on top of. And the rainbow was on his head. This word on in Greek is G1909, a primary preposition properly meaning superimposition of time, place, order, etc., as a relation of distribution, that is, over, upon, etc., of rest, at, on, etc., of direction, towards, upon, etc. When tracing it back, we see that it's at Genesis 9:14. We see the word upon in the Greek there. And in seeing it in the King James with the Strong's number, and it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. Here we have our word over or on, or whichever one you want to describe it as in English. But let's trace it back to the ancient Hebrew and see what the context is. Properly the same as H5920, used as a preposition in the singular or plural, often with prefix, or as conjunction with the particle following, above, over, upon, or against, yet always in this last relation with a downward aspect. It's in a great variety of applications. So coming out of the Strong's, let's trace it back to the ancient Hebrew. We find it at 1357 AN. It's the word all. Ayin lamed, ayin lam. First definition there, above. And we can see the different Strong's numbers for it. In looking at the family root there, we see the action is to raise. Looking at the two-letter parent root, we see the ayin lam. The action is to work, the concrete is a yoke. The pictograph ayin is a picture of the eye representing knowledge and experience. The lam is a picture of a shepherd's staff or yoke. Combined, these mean experience the staff. The yoke, a staff, is lifted over the shoulder, is attached to the oxen performing the work. Many people, when he puts his feet down and the rainbow is on his head and his face is like the sun, etc., etc., are going to experience this staff, the staff of his word, the staff of what he has taught, that we are supposed to be following. Those high places will experience the staff as a punishment rod at this time. Those going with Yah, who came to rescue us, will experience the staff, have intimate knowledge, ayin, of the shepherd at this time. As we take a look back at this bow, we will find that it will cause us to experience the staff of the head. So now that we've seen on whose head and what exactly that looks like means, let's take a look and delve into the actual rainbow. We see it's Greek 2463. In the Strong's, perhaps from G2046, as a symbol of the female messenger of the pagan deities, a rainbow, iris. The 2046 that it goes back to, perhaps, is a fuller form of 4483, an alternative for 2036 in certain tenses to utter, that is, speak or say. What a mess. The Apostolic Bible Polyglot and the Hebrew New Testament both trace the Greek iris to cassia, as in tree, wood, or oil. However, this is not the context of Revelation chapter 10. And this is certainly not a female pagan messenger above the head, on the head of Yah who came to rescue us. So what do we do now? We go back and we find the context in the TANAK. Yehezkel 1, verses 25 to 28. And a voice came from above the expanse that was over their heads. When they stood, they dropped their wings. And above the expanse over their heads was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. And on the likeness of the throne was a likeness as the appearance of a man high above it. And from the appearance of his waist and upward I saw what looked like glowing metal, with the appearance of fire all around it. And from the appearance of his waist downward, I saw what looked like fire and brightness all around it, as the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. So was the appearance of the brightness all around it. It was the appearance of the likeness of the esteem of Yah. And when I saw it, I fell on my face. And I heard a voice of one speaking. So we see here a very, very similar appearance as we see in Revelation 10, verse 1. Looking back at the appearance, I just wanted you to see it in the ancient Hebrew lexicon. What is seen? The action is see, the concrete is see, the abstract is appearance. The ability to see, perceive, or have a vision. There is an ability to see, perceive, and have a vision. The appearance of a rainbow. Looking at this rainbow in the Hebrew, we see it as H7198, Keseth, from 7185, in the original sense of 6983, of bending, a bow, for shooting, hence figuratively strength, or the iris. So between the context of Ezekiel compared to Revelation 10, and the fact that we at least see the iris here, and we consider that a rainbow as well as a bow bends, it seems like we have a match. In tracing it back to the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see it at 1435a, N2. It is from right to left, the kuf, the shin, and the taw. A bow, made from a stiff branch to shoot arrows. At the A, we see the concrete is stubble, the stiff part of the stalk that remains in the ground, the stiffness of a branch for making bows or arrows. At the two-letter parent root, we see the kuf and the shin. The action is to gather. The concrete is stalk. The pictograph kuf is a picture of the sun at the horizon and the gathering of the light. The shin is a picture of the teeth representing pressure. Combined, these mean bring together and pressed. Once the grain stalks are harvested from the field, it is gathered into bundles and secured with a cord in the middle. So we have our three letters here, the kuf, the shin, and the taw on the bottom left. The kuf is the sun on the horizon, as we saw. Bring together, the gathering. The shin is the two front teeth. Press, the taw, cross, sticks, mark, sign, seal, own, covenant. So we have this bringing together and pressing together. This gathering is what it actually represents of those who have the mark, sign, seal, and are owned in the covenant of Yah. There's this appearance of the rainbow of his head. It is actually a sign of something, and those of us that will come into agreement and those who will come into disagreement. The group being gathered as for the harvest, being brought together and pressed, will be for the ones here and now, and during the millennial reign, shooting arrows, words, resulting in works of truth. The chaff is being beat off of them now as well. There will be a second group that is shooting fiery darts that come from being under the influence of the adversary. That group will not make the first resurrection. And look at the grave possibility of the lake of fire in the end. While the earth will not be destroyed by flood again, a group will be gathered and pressed together. Those who are sealed, carrying the mark of Yah on their forehead and their hands, at the first resurrection. The second death will have no power over them, when there will be those who are thrown into the lake of fire, which kills all the DNA. And the earth, all creation, will no longer have to groan, and the other group whose names are written in the book of life. So we see this rainbow over his head is a sign for those who are being pressed together. So let's just give that some confirmation. we're going to delve into part of Genesis 9, looking at some various Hebrew words and the verses, and then the entirety of it in context. Genesis 9, verse 9. And I, behold, I establish, Eltah, my covenant with you, and with your seed after you. We see he's going to establish. 1427 JV, raise, to raise, or to rise up. Also in the sense of continuing or establishing something. Then we see the Eltah. And there we have it on the bottom of the screen, the Eltah. His word is everything from the El to the Ta. He rose, the El to the Ta. It rose. It's been established, it was established, and it continues on to this very day. Just as the one that we saw come down and put 1 foot on the mountain, 1 foot in the sea, in Revelation chapter 10, actually we'll see it coming up. So this Eltah has been risen. He's established a covenant with you and with your seed after you. And he is obviously in this chapter speaking with Noah. So what about this seed after Noah? Who, by the way, his name means rest. This seed, 2137N, seed. At the root, the action is sow, the concrete is seed. The sowing of seeds by scattering them across the field. So Noah had seed. He had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So some of these seed were going to go unto destruction in the lake of fire in the end, and some of the seed will go into the first resurrection, and hence into the book of life. As we see in this word, his seed after you. After, a time to come beyond another event. Certainly the events that we speak of from Revelation 10, which actually is between the 6th and 7th trumpet, would be an event or a time to come. We see at the 2-letter root, the action is to burn. The pictograph het is a picture of a wall representing the outside. The resh is a picture of a man. Combined, these mean outside man. A man outside in the desert sun becomes pale and hot. So we see that there will be seed after him. There will be a time to come. He's flooded the earth this time. This is his promise, this sign never to flood it again. But what's going to happen next time? It's going to burn. The lake of fire is going to burn so that it can burn the entirety of the DNA of wickedness out of this earth. Genesis 9, 10 to 12. And this covenant he made with this seed after him, and with every living being that is with you, of the birds, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and never again is all flesh cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again is there a flood to destroy the earth. Because next time he's making the promise that it won't be a flood, but it's going to be by fire so that it kills the DNA and the wickedness will be gone. There will be those, well, let's come back to that. Let's continue on for now. And El said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set Eltah, my bow, in the cloud, and it shall exist for a token of a covenant between me and the Eretz, the earth. So again, here we see this token that he's setting is a mark. It's a sign of an agreement between two parties. You agree not to do the wickedness, and he agrees not to flood the earth again, but to get rid of all the wickedness in the time to come by burning the DNA. We see it comes from the Eltah. And he sets Eltah his bow. It's a giving. It's a gift. It's a reminder for us that one day this wickedness, we will have rest from it. Because again, that's what Noah's name means, is rest. Again, we see the Eltah. He gives the Eltah. He sets it in the sky. The Eltah makes up everything which the word consists of. He sets it in the sky as a bow, and there it exists as a sign of this covenant between him and the earth. Why? So the earth doesn't, it's groaning for rest. The earth is groaning for rest. So he gives this El Ta in the sky, his bow. Again, we've already looked at the bow, and we've talked about the bow and about the gathering that it represents. And you're going to either be brought together and pressed one way, or you're going to be brought together and pressed another. Are we going to be in the covenant? Are we going to have the sign, the mark upon us, or not? And this bow exists. To exist or have breath, that which exists has breath. In Hebrew thought, the breath is the character of someone or something. Just as a man has character, so do objects. The hay is one who is looking at a great sight with his hands raised and taking a long breath. The hay represents one who is looking at a great sight with his hands raised and taking a long breath. We should be looking at this great sight that exists in the sky. And between the two hays is a yod, which is the right hand, arm, power, strength, and authority of Yah himself. This existence that's in the sky. We should be looking upon it and taking a deep breath, a long sigh, that there is a time to come, and we are working our way towards that time, and we can bring others along with us to that time. It should be not only a notion of great relief, but also a respectful, reverent fear of the mighty, awesome Elohim that we serve. So let's read this portion of Scripture and be sure that the context fits. Genesis 9:1 to 9:17. I would encourage you to get out your own scriptures and read along. And Elohim blessed Noah, whose name means rest, and his sons, and said to them, be fruitful and increase, and fill the earth. Fill the earth. Be fruitful. Increase. It requires seed to be fruitful and increase. No seed, no increase. And the fear of you and the dread of you is on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the Shemayim, on all that creeps on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they have been given. Every creeping that lives is food for you. I have given you all as the green plants. But do not eat flesh with life, its blood, but only your blood. For your lives I require. From the hand of every beast I require it, and from the hand of man. From the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood is shed. For in the image of Elohim he has made man. As for you, be fruitful and increase. You can't be fruitful and increase if there's no seed. Bring forth teemingly in the earth and increase in it. You can't increase, you can't bring forth if there is no seed. And Elohim spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, that they're either going to live or they're going to die. But the promise is that the wickedness will be gone from the earth, and with every living being that is with you, of the birds, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and never again is all flesh cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again is there a flood to destroy the earth, because it's going to be by fire. And Elohim said, this is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living being that is with you, for all generations to come. We're not exempt from this promise, whichever side of it we choose to be on. And I shall set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And it shall be, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud, because existence has made this promise. And the rain that's in the cloud is the El Ta. Going to bring the cloud over the earth, and the rainbow shall be seen, an everlasting covenant. And I shall remember my covenant, which is between me and you, and every living being of all flesh. And never again let the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I shall see it, to remember the everlasting covenant between Elohim and every living being of all flesh that is on the earth. And Elohim said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. So let's take a look on the next two slides how that relates to the rainbow in the sky. Revelation 10, verses 1 to 7. And I saw another strong messenger coming down from the heaven, robed in a cloud, and a rainbow on his head. His face was like the sun, and his feet like columns of fire. And having in his hand a little book opened, and he placed his right foot on the sea, and his left foot on the land, and cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars, like maybe the lion of the tribe of Judah. And when he cried out, 7 thunders spoke their sounds. And when the 7 thunders spoke their sounds, I was about to write. But I heard a voice from the heavens saying to me, seal up what the 7 thunders spoke, and do not write them. And the messenger whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to the Shemayim, and swore by him who lives forever and ever. We'll take a look at that. Who created the heaven and what is in it, the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it, that there shall be no further delay. When this messenger shows up with this rainbow on his head, and his face that shines like the sun, and his feet like columns of fire, Yahweh came to rescue us, the strongest messenger that there's ever been. There shall be no further delay. Further delay for what? For the people, for the first resurrection, for the end of this age, to go into the millennial reign. But in the days of the sounding of the 7th messenger, when the 7th trump sounds, the last trump, when he is about to sound, the secret of Elohim shall also be ended, as he declared to his servants, the prophets. So it will be the secret of the end of this age, of those that are going into the first resurrection, because we shall see that the second death possesses no authority over them. They shall not be burned in the lake of fire. So there's a group right here that are going to be gathered and pressed together right here, no further delay at the sounding of this messenger, gathered together, pressed together, because they carried the mark, the sign, the seal of Yah, who came to rescue us. Quick side note, I like to put these little Greek analysis charts in here. Quick side note, and he swore by the living. She swore by him. There's no him in there. Him that liveth. No, he swore by the living. He's swearing by himself, because he can swear by no one greater than himself. That him is not even there. So that was just a little side note. Revelation 20, verses 4 to 6. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them. And the lives of those who had been beheaded because of the witness they bore to Yeshua, and because of the word Elohim, and who did not worship the beast nor his image, and did not receive his mark upon their foreheads or upon their hands, and they lived and reigned with Messiah, the anointed priest, prophet, and king, Yah himself, for 1,000 years. And the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and set apart, gathered together and pressed, because the mark was upon their foreheads and upon their hands. They were sealed, is the one having part in the first resurrection. The second death, whether you're going to go into the lake of fire or you're going to make it as a wedding guest, possesses no authority over these. But they shall be priests of Elohim, and Messiah the same person, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. So what are those in the first resurrection guaranteed? That one day the rest shall exist without death, mourning, crying, or pain. This rainbow, this bow in the sky, represents just that. And we, as true believers in Yeshua Messiah, the King of righteousness, the high priest, the master of masters, this ought to be our goal, and it should be a relief that one day, as we groan to be out of this world, that these things be so. And just as the rainbow never ends, can never get to the end of the rainbow, so his word, which is made up from everything from the El to the Taw, it will never end. Let's take a little closer look at this bow, or the rainbow in the sky, from a kind of scientific perspective. A rainbow is a meteorological phenomenon that is caused by reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light in water droplets, resulting in a spectrum of light appearing in the sky. It takes the form of a multicolored circular arc. It bends like a bow. Rainbows, caused by sunlight, always appear in the section of the sky directly opposite the sun. When sunlight encounters a raindrop, when light encounters a raindrop, part of the light is reflected and the rest enters the raindrop. The light is refracted at the surface of the raindrop. When this light hits the back of the raindrop, some of it is reflected off the back. When the internally reflected light reaches the surface again, once more, some is internally reflected and some is refracted as it exits the drop. In physics, refraction is the change in direction of a wave passing from one medium to another, or from a gradual change in the medium. So let's take a look at this other word for bow that is used, same exact Hebrew word. It's not another word, it's the exact same word, but it's used in a different context. And let's see if we don't see some, if not all, of the scientific description of a rainbow right in our ancient Hebrew language, letters, and description. So let's take a look at this word bow in its other context, but yet let's see how it relates to the bow that's in the sky. Looking it up at Psalm 11:2, for lo, the wicked bend their bow, they make ready their arrow upon the string, that they might privily shoot at the upright in heart. First, the word bend. We want to get a good look at exactly how this bow is working, or at least a minuscule look. To tread, to take a step, a journey as a treading. The stringing of a bow is a treading as the foot is stepped over the bow and using the leg to bend it. The action is tread, the concrete is rode. As a path. So this is actually the derek. The way that we're supposed to walk, it's actually the way. The way back to the garden. The way back to where we were supposed to be in the very first place. That's a look at this bending of the bow. It all has to do with getting back to the original. Then we see again our bow, H7198, from H7185, in the original sense of bending, a bow, for shooting, hence figuratively strength or the iris. Again, there we see our bow, made from a stiff branch to shoot arrows. So these bows are going to be bent and made ready to shoot their arrows, ready to set something firmly in place, either physically or with words. The action is firm, the concrete is foundation. At the two-letter root, the Kaf Nun, the action is stand, the concrete is root, and the abstract is shore. The Kaf is the open palm, the Nun is the seed. Combine these mean opening of a seed. When the seed opens, the root begins to form the base of the plant by going down into the soil. The plant rises out of the ground, forming the stalk of the plant. A tall tree can only stand tall and firm because of the strong root system which supports it. And so they are making ready, firmly putting in place, either physically or with words, to shoot these arrows so that the seed inside of the ones that they're shooting at, the upright in heart, cannot take a firm, solid root. They want to have the seed of the adversary take a firm, solid root so that it can outgrow and overtake the seed of Yah that is in us. The arrow, Strong's H2671. Oh, did I forget to say the word is the seed? The seed is the word? The seed is the word. Arrow from 2686, properly a piercer. That is, an arrow, by implication a wound, figurative of L, thunderbolt, the shaft of a spear. So we see this arrow pierces. It's going to pierce the heart of the upright when it's shot at them. And it comes from the ancient Hebrew lexicon 1179 AN, an arrow as dividing the flesh. It's a piercing. It's got to do with being pierced. Does the flesh divide? Sure it does. But when you cut something with a sword, that's more of a division than a piercing. This is a piercing of your heart with an arrow. The het is a wall. The zod is a man on his side, wall of sides. The tent wall divides or separates the inside from the outside. The wall inside the tent divides the tent into two sections. And so this is a piercing to divide you one way or another. And they shoot. Yara, a primitive root, properly to flow as water, that is to rain, transitively to lay or throw, especially an arrow, that is to shoot, figuratively to point out, as if by aiming the finger, to teach. 1227 HV. Do you see the V is 1 to throw, 2 to rain, 3 to teach, to point the way one is to walk in life. The action is to throw, the concrete is rain, a throwing of the finger to show direction to walk or live, the throwing, i.e. shooting, of an arrow, the throwing down of water in rain, which is something we need to make a rainbow. At the two-letter root, the action is throw, the abstract is fear. The pictograph yod is a picture of a hand, and the resh is a picture of man. Combined, these mean hand of man. The hand of man is used for throwing, a flowing of water in a river, a throwing of the finger to show direction to walk or live, the throwing, i.e. shooting, because you pull the bow back with your hand, of an arrow, the throwing down of water and rain. Awe or fear when one throws oneself at the foot of one in authority. So we see this shooting of the upright has to do, or can have something to do, with words being shot like arrows from their bow because they want you to be gathered not to the right side and be marked. The bow which they've bent, the one that's going to keep you from going back along the path, along the way, to wherever we want to be. And who are they shooting at? The upright, the yashar, from 3474, straight, literally or figuratively. We see them at 1480 LN. Number 1 is the cord, which is actually the cord of the bow, the string of the bow. Number 2 is straight, a straight line, path, or thought. Number 3 is remnant. Okay, the remnant is definitely straight. At the L root, we see a tight rope is straight. A righteous one is one who is straight and firmly holds up the truth. The word is the truth. Just as the cord is straight and firmly holds the wall of the tent upright. We see at the two-letter root, it's the shin resh. The shin is the teeth, representing pressure. The resh is the head, representing the top or beginning. I think we saw the resh at the beginning. Combined, these mean press the beginning. Ropes and cords were usually made of bark strips, such as from the cedar, or from the sinew tendon of an animal. The rope is made by twisting two fibers together. A single fiber is attached to a fixed point at the top or the beginning, and the two ends of the fiber are brought together. One fiber is twisted in a clockwise direction and wrapped over the other fiber in a counterclockwise direction. The second fiber is then twisted in a clockwise direction, then wrapped around the first fiber in a counterclockwise direction. The process is repeated through the length of the rope. The twisting of the fibers in opposite directions causes the fibers to lock. That's where we get our shin, our press, onto each other, making a stronger rope. The rope is used to tightly secure or support something, such as a load to a cart or the poles of the tent. So we see these uprights are pressing that which was from the beginning. By their works, by the way they worship, which are both the yod, by the strength and power of the right hand, the right arm power of Yah, which is the word, which is Yah himself, they are pressing that which was from the beginning, that which was from the head in the very beginning. And there are the Rashah who bend their bow, they make ready the arrow to shoot at the upright in heart. So are they shooting falsehood or truth? Jeremiah 9:1 through 9:9. Oh, that my head were waters, and my eyes a fountain of tears, and I would weep day and night for the slain daughter of my people. These are actually Jeremiah's people, Yisrael. Oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place for wayfaring men, and I would leave my people and go from them. For they are all adulterers, an assembly of treacherous men, and they bend their tongue like a bow. Falsehood and not truth prevails on the earth. For they proceed from evil to evil, and they have not known me, declares Yah. So they bend their tongue in falsehood and not truth. And they bend their tongues, their bow, lies. But they are not valiant, Gabor, from the family of heads, for firmness upon the earth. For they proceed from evil to evil, dysfunction to dysfunction. And they know not me, saith Yah. Let every one beware of his neighbor, and not trust any brother. For every brother catches by the heel, and every neighbor walks with slanderers. His brothers and his neighbors were those who were with him. And everyone deceives his neighbor, and no one speaks the truth. They have taught their tongue to speak falsehood, and have wearied themselves to crook. You live in the midst of deceit. Through deceit they have refused to know me, declares Yah. Therefore thus says Yah of hosts, see, I shall refine them, and shall try them. For what shall I do because of the daughter of my people? Their tongue is a slaying arrow. It speaks deceit, speaks peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in his heart he sets his ambush. Would I not punish them for this, declares Yah? Would I not revenge myself on such a nation as this? So as we saw, they're either going to speak lies and not be valiant to be firm, or they're going to speak the truth. So first, let's look at the fact they're not valiant. They're not warriors for being firm upon the earth. This firmness is at 1290 CD1, In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, it's firmness. We can see as we go up to the V, the verb, that it's firm, to stand firm as a support. And then we see at the two-letter parent root, the mem and the noon. The action is firm, the concrete is kind, and the abstract is sure. The mem is water or other liquid such as blood. Noon is the seed representing continuance. Combined, these mean the blood continues. Each species or kind continues by passing its blood or its likeness to the following generation, which comes from the parent. Also, the idea of strength through the blood. Good grief. That's another study. So we see that they are not warriors for firmness, for like kind after L, after like kind after L. It is for sure and for certain that like kind will be after like kind. We will either be carrying the DNA in our blood of the L to the Ta, which is that of Yah, or we will be speaking lies. It's one way or the other. It's truth, it's firmness, valiant, or it's lies. So we can see, and no one speaks the truth. The truth is in the exact same root line, in the exact same family root. What is firm? It is for sure and for certain that the truth is firm, and that is what will cause us to be like kind after like kind. The likeness of Yah will continue in us only in the truth. So if we're going to bend our tongue like a bow, it better be for the truth. It better be for speaking the truth and not for speaking lies. This speaks is debar. 2093V, a careful arrangement of words or commands. The action is order, the concrete is word, an arrangement or placement of something creating order. The words that we speak, the word, which is the noun, which is the exact same Hebrew word, the word of truth needs to be in order. It needs to be shot. We need to bend our tongues like a bow and shoot the arrows of truth at people by speaking them. And there we see at the bottom where Jeff Benner says the debar comes from the Dalit Resh. That Dalit is a moving back and forth. The Resh is the head of man, the back and forth movement of man. A generation is one revolution of a family line. The Hebraic understanding of order is the continual cyclical process of life and death, or renewal and destruction. Which is it going to be? The root can also have the meaning of circling around something in a wide area or to cover a large area. We need to speak the truth from generation to generation. It needs to be what proceeds from our mouth, so that the next generation can proceed to give the orders and the commands of Yah, speaking the truth in the order that they should be spoken in. This continual cycle of life and death one day is going to end, and there's going to be life or death. Everlasting life, renewal unto the way it was in the beginning, or destruction in the lake of fire. What are we allowing ourselves to be fed, and what are we feeding others? What kind of arrows are we shooting at those around us? And what kind of arrows or words are we allowing people to give us? What we are bending our tongues like a bow for must be the whole truth and nothing but the truth. It must be for nothing but what is firm. It must be for nothing but what is going to produce like kind after like kind. The truth begins with the L and it ends with the Ta, and everything in between in its proper order causes the blood or the likeness to continue, so that we might continue on into life eternal, yet passing that down to the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. Now we're going to take a look at 2 Timothy chapter 2. I would encourage everyone to turn to that chapter so that you can follow along. This is Paul, of course, writing to Timothy. Timothy, who was raised in the faith, because in Timothy chapter 1, verse 5 of this book, we read, "For I recollect the sincere belief which is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded is in you too. So we know that Timothy had the belief and was raised in the belief. Starting at 2 Timothy chapter 2. You then, my son, being strong in the favor that is in Messiah Yeshua, and what you have heard from me among many witnesses, entrust these to trustworthy, firm, men of firmness, men who will be valiant to be firm about everything, that the likeness or the blood will continue in the proper order from the eld of the Tah, because they're going to be speaking the truth, and they're going to be firm in it. Entrust these to trustworthy men who shall be competent, fit in character, and to teach others as well. To teach them what? To teach them the belief in Yeshua Messiah, that he came and shed his blood, that Yahweh came to rescue us, the Torah, the commands, the statutes, the laws that we are to follow, and so many other things that go along with what's in the Torah and the prophets. Suffer hardship as a good soldier, a warrior of Yah who came to rescue us, the anointed. No one serving as a soldier, as a warrior, gets involved in affairs of this life in order to please him who enlisted him as a soldier. Lots of times we hear, well, you're not living in the real world. Well, praise Yah. And if anyone competes in a game, he is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. We must compete legitimately, and we must be teaching others to compete legitimately. The hard-working farmer ought to be first to receive his share of the crops. Think over, observe, comprehend, heed what I say, for the Master shall give you understanding into all of this. That way, he can pass it along. Remember that Yeshua Messiah of the seed of David was raised from the dead according to my good news, for which I suffer hardship as a criminal unto chains. But the word of Elohim is not changed, is not chained. It is without end, just like a rainbow. So I endure through it all for the sake of the chosen, so that they too obtain deliverance which is in Messiah Yeshua. That they obtain deliverance, that they be in the first resurrection is the goal at this time, that their souls be delivered unto life and not unto death in that final day. So that they too obtain deliverance which is in Messiah Yeshua, and everlasting esteem, everlasting. Trustworthy, firm. You can be for sure and for certain that his word is firm and it stands. Trustworthy, firm is the word. For if we died in him, we shall also live in him. If we endure, we shall also reign within him and with him. If we deny him, he shall also deny us. If we are not trustworthy, if we disbelieve, if we disobey, he's still the same firm, trustworthy Savior that he's always been, because he's going to stand on the firmness of the truth of the word, because it is impossible for him to contradict or deny himself. Remind them of this, earnestly witnessing before the Master, not to wage verbal battles, which is useless to the overthrowing of the hearers. Do your utmost to present yourself unadulterated to Elohim, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, a dried up seed, rightly handling the word of truth. And we're going to take a close look at that. But keep away, shun, disassociate yourself from profane, empty babblings, empty-sounding, fruitless discussions, for they go on to more wickedness, and their word shall eat its way like gangrene. Humenos and Philetos are of this sort, who have deviated, missed the mark concerning the truth, saying that the resurrection has already taken place, and overthrow the belief of some. The promise that was made for the first resurrection has not happened yet. If we are living in the reign, it's just not possible. This is not it. He is not sitting on his throne here on the earth. But for sure and for certain, the great white throne judgment, the second resurrection, has not taken place, because we're not at a place where there's no more tears, no more mourning, no more crying, no more death, no more pain. However, the solid foundation of Elohim stands firm. Praise Yah. Having this seal, Yah knows who are his, and let everyone who names the name of Messiah turn away, depart from unrighteousness. But in a large house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some unto value, and some unto no value. If then anyone cleanses himself from these, then we see matters in italics, these matters of what? Unrighteousness. He shall be a vessel unto value, having been set apart, of good use to the master, having been prepared for every good work. He can pass it on, that they may see that they may be a light, and people may see their good works and praise their Father in the Shemaim. They may hear their good word of truth and flee from the lusts of youth, but pursue righteousness, belief, love, peace, with those calling on the Master out of a clean heart. But refuse foolish and stupid questions, knowing that they breed quarrels. A servant of the Master should not quarrel, but be gentle towards all, able to teach, patient when wronged, in meekness instructing those who are in opposition, lest somehow Elohim gives them repentance unto a thorough knowledge of the truth. And they come to their senses, they become sober again, not drunk. They come to their senses out of the snare, the trick, the stratagem, the temptation of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his desire. His desire is to get you to deny the Master in words and actions, to get you to break the Torah and teach others to do the same, to get you to twist the truth and not teach the truth, to get you to bend your tongue towards falsehood as opposed to bending your tongue to truth. So let's go back. I want to really focus in on verse 15 in this chapter. 2 Timothy 2:15 reads, "Do your utmost to present yourself approved to Elohim, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth." Many times it's been said, rightly dividing. I really want to delve into that when we consider what we are bending the bow of our tongue to. Greek 37:18 is this rightly handle, from a compound of 37:17 and the base of 51:14, to make a straight cut, that is, figuratively, to dissect, expound correctly the divine message. The 37:17, which is the first half of it, is probably from the base of 37:35, which is right, as rising, that is, perpendicularly, erect, figuratively honest, or horizontally, level or direct. So we see in this first word, even in the Greek, we have it's right, it stands. Figuratively, it's honest. So let's see where it traces back to in the Hebrew. Proverbs 12:6, we can trace back the 37:17. And in the King James, it reads, the words, the debar of the wicked, are to lie in wait for blood. But the mouth, what comes from the mouth of the straight, the upright, who the wicked were shooting their darts at previously, shall deliver them. Just like we saw in Timothy, give them what they need, teach them what they need for deliverance. We also see the 38:18 or 37:18, which the word comes from originally in Proverbs 11:5 and 11:6. And it reads, the righteousness of the perfect, the tamim, shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright shall deliver them, but transgressors shall be taken in their own naughtiness. And so we see here in Proverbs 11:5 and 6, 34:74, 34:77. We see at Proverbs 12:6, it went to the 34:77. So let's see where these go in the ancient Hebrew lexicon. They go to the same place we've already seen. They go to 1480, the L line. This time they go to the verb. The verb is the same Hebrew word, same letters as the noun. It's all about the action in Hebrew. At the verb, we see straight, to be in a straight line, path, or thought. Remnant, we've got to be remnant of upright, straight people that should be teaching and instructing others unto the deliverance that is going to be, at this point, to the first resurrection. At the L, a tight rope is straight. A righteous one is one who is straight and firmly holds up the truth, everything from the L to the taw in its proper order that continues the likeness in between, standing firm in that. Just as a cord is straight and firmly holds the wall of the tent upright. And then we go to our description at the two-letter root about the shin being a pressing and the resh being a head, meaning press the beginning, and we have the whole description again of how they make the rope. And this tightly wound, tightly knit rope or cord that they have. They're straight, they're righteous, they've pressed that which is from the beginning, and they're passing the same ideas, the same, we'll call it theology, the same teachings onto others. Here I have included some pictures of the Greek concordance to the Septuagint by Hatch and Redpath. Obviously I've scribbled all over this one, but that can show you how you can look this up in the Greek concordance and trace it back to these Hebrew words. You come back to this screen later, look at it, kind of dissect it for yourself. It's a great resource. For those of you that have the Theological Wordbook of the Old Testament, this word is number 930, and it's on pages 417 to 418. If you're new to this, I highly encourage you to get this resource. It's a great resource to give you an understanding of the Hebrew words themselves and the different contexts that they're used in. Is any book ever 100% right? Absolutely not. But let's take a look at some of how this reads in the TWOT. The root yashar is employed in at least 3 ways. 1, literally, to go straight or direct in the way. Sounds like a good plan. But more frequently in the intensive, to make a way straight, i.e. direct and level and free from obstacles, as when preparing to receive a royal visitor. Wow. This is the work of El for man, Proverbs 3:6. But also of man for El, Isaiah 43. It is to look straight ahead of you. Not to the right, don't turn that way, don't go to the left. It is to look straight ahead of you, to do something evenly, as Solomon's overlaying the cherubs with gold, or Hezekiah's designing the aqueduct, bringing it straight to the west of Yerushalayim. Number 2, ethically, uprightness as a matter of life is a characteristic of the blameless. That would be the bride, without spot, without blemish, blameless tamim. Proverbs 11:5. And of the man of discernment, Psalms 119, verse 128. I have lived uprightly. It is said of the reckless that his soul is not upright within him, Habakkuk 2:4, and this leads to pride and failure. Yashor, upright. The attributive adjective is used to emphasize an attribute of A. Elohim, describing his reign over his people, his ways, his words, especially qualified persons, as a parallel to the righteous or the perfect or the tamim, qualified to be teaching, qualified to be in the first resurrection, legitimately competing by the rules and teaching others to do the same. Number 3, as an idiomatic expression with eyes, to be right in the eyes of a person is to have his approval by keeping his commands. A fuller phrase to do what is right, hayashar, the right, in the eyes of Yah, is linked with obedience to his commands. Dawid is said to have followed Yah's commands. Hezekiah did the right in that he kept the commandments which Yah had commanded Moshe. Note that this phrase implies the existence and knowledge of the law of Elohim, and that individual kings were thought to have kept it, and I will add to that, are thought to have not kept it. Also from this root we see Yeshurun. It's a proper name used only of Yisrael, those who would rule with El. Those who are straight and upright will rule with El, be in the first resurrection, and rule and reign for 1,000 years, because the second death has no power over them, because they did not receive the mark on their hand or on their forehead. The parallelism of Jacob and Israel with Jacob and Yeshurun is in Deuteronomy 32:15, Isaiah 44:2, Yeshurun makes it clear that the reference must be to Jacob under his name Yisrael. Yah is El of Yeshurun, Deuteronomy 33:26. And there is a whole plethora of other information in this book just on that word. That's just a little taste of the kind of reference that we're looking at here and what this word looks like in the Hebrew. So let's take a look at the second half of the Greek 37:18. The base of 51:14 to make a straight cut, that is figuratively to dissect, expound correctly the divine message. In the Thayers, we see it can be to cut straight ways, to proceed on straight paths, hold a straight course. Equivalently to doing right, to make straight and smooth, to handle aright, to teach the truth directly and correctly. This Strong's 5114, from which it comes, compound of a derivative of a primary word, temno, to cut, more comprehensive or decisive than 2875, as if by a single stroke, whereas that implies repeated blows, like a hacking. This is more keen. But when you combine it with the 3717, you get dissect, expound correctly the divine message. Even looking at it in some Greek literature, which I did, sometimes it's to cut, but there are some instances where it's to make a path, make one's way. And so even in other Greek literature, we do have instances of it being about making one's way. Looking in Vincent's word studies, it's a Greek word study tool, this is what he says. In the LXX, Proverbs 3:6, Proverbs 11:5, both times in the sense of directing the way. Straight and to cut, hence to cut straight as paths, to hold a straight course, generally to make straight, to handle rightly. The the Vulgate, the thought is that the minister of the gospel is to present the truth rightly, not abridging it, not handling it as a charlatan, not making it a matter of wordy strife, but treating it honestly and fully in a straightforward manner. They are going to bend the bow of their tongue to shoot the arrows of their words straight forwardly, to pierce what? Pierce the hearts of those who would hear it, so that they could come unto deliverance. And he goes on to say some things here that some I agree with, some I don't agree with. Various homiletic fancies have been founded on the word as to divide the word of truth. You don't divide the truth. The truth is the truth, and it all comes and works together. It's all one. If you divide the truth, and Messiah is the truth, you've divided Messiah. Giving to each hearer what he needs, or to separate it into its proper parts, or to separate it from error, or to cut straight through it so that its inmost contents may be laid bare. Others again have found in it the figure of the dividing of bread, which is the office of the household of the steward, or of dividing the sacrificial victims, or of cutting a straight furrow with a plow. So the part where it says to separate it from error, to rightly handle it, yeah, I think that we need to make sure that everything that's coming out of the mouth of those who claim to be teaching the gospel, the good news, everything from Genesis to Revelation should be being taught, and we need to separate those things from error. We need to be so familiar with the truth that when a counterfeit looms on the horizon, we recognize it immediately. We need to be able to rightly handle the word of truth, rightly teach the word of truth. What we speak needs to be truth, and we need to be teaching these things to others, to everyone that would listen. As we check the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, this is just a representative example of what's in there. There are more verses in which it goes to. You can also check the Greek Concordance to the Septuagint by Hatch and Redpath to get a full list of what it goes to. Lots of times we see this G5114 going to the arrow or the bow or the shooting of the bow. And so we never once do we see it going to a word that means to cut, to divide. We see it going to these words that have to do with the bow and the arrow and the shooting of the bow and the arrow. So let's look back and let's see if we can find it. Well, I think we've already found it as much as we need to in context, but let's take a look at just a few verses and kind of see if we can put this to rest. Two of the places that it traces back to are 2 Samuel 11:20 and 2 Samuel 11:24. And these are about bowmen or shooters shooting their bows with their arrows. Goes to a word that we've already seen, H3384. Yara, a primitive root, properly to flow as water, that is to rain, transitively to lay or throw, especially an arrow, that is to shoot, figuratively to point out, as if by aiming the finger to teach. There we see it in the ancient Hebrew lexicon at 1227 HV. The definitions are throw, rain, teach, we shoot the arrow, show the direction to walk in life, to live. The action is to throw, the abstract is fear. And so we saw this previously when they were bending the bow of their tongue to shoot their arrows. People bend the bow of their tongue to shoot their arrows, and we're going to see this some more. And it's all got to do with the words and what they're teaching. Very interesting, this comes from a concrete of rain, because it takes both light and rain to make a rainbow. Again, if you have your TWOT, this root line is number 910, and it's on pages 401 to 405. Lots of information on this root line here in this book. I'm just going to pick out a few things and read it to you in the context of what we're studying. The three most frequent uses of this root deal with shooting arrows, sending rain, and teaching. Wow. This is obviously where we get our word Torah or Torot. And it says, teaching is the special task of the wisdom school, as seen especially through the book of Proverbs and of the priesthood. Wow. The latter accompanies a revealed religion. The priests are to teach the law given by Moshe. King Joash acted uprightly because he was instructed by the high priest. Ezra the priest faithfully taught the law of Moshe in the fall feast of tabernacles in accordance with the Deuteronomic injunction. Unfortunately, the priests were not always true to Elohim. They taught for money and became teachers of lies. Similarly, an idol is deemed a teacher of lies. Don't make anyone or anything an idol in your world. El himself is particularly described as a teacher. He taught Moshe both what to do and say. He also teaches sinners the right way and instructs those who fear him in the way they should choose. Therefore, the psalmist often beseeches Elohim to teach him so that he may keep the statutes and walk in the way of truth. The word Torah means basically teaching. Whether it is the wise man instructing his son, the seeds after him, or Elohim instructing Yisrael, those who would rule with him. The wise give insight into all aspects of life so that the young may know how to conduct themselves and to live a long and blessed life, so that they can be delivered, so that they can compete legitimately. And it goes on to say, the law specifically is the stipulation of the covenant. But in a broad sense of law, namely Elohim's teaching, covenant plays the central part. Law and covenant may parallel one another. Since they are so closely tied together, to break one is to break both. Their interconnection is further witnessed to in that the tables of the testimony were placed in the Ark of the Covenant, and a copy of the Book of the Law placed beside it as a perpetual witness to the covenant between Elohim and his people. Following the law is the source of life. It makes life a joy and lengthens its days. On the other hand, as the standard, it tests Yisrael to determine whether they will follow Elohim completely or not. In addition, it was to be read and meditated on so that its precepts should become an integral part of the lifestyle of the people. It was their guidebook. More than that, it was their constitution. Yisrael was a religious state. As such, the fundamental document that determined its character was the law given through Moshe. The king was to save his own copy, and he was to read it all the days of his life so that he would learn to fear Yah by keeping all the words of the law. We're going to be kings and priests in the kingdom reign. I think we maybe want to keep that instruction in mind. Since the written law was superior to the king in Yisrael, the king could never become a Elohim or a religious innovator. His right to rule was subordinate to the law. How many have left that today? The law was the special property of the priests. They were to teach its precepts and follow its regulations. They were known as those who handle the law. But unfortunately, the priesthood became blind and arrogant. They forgot Elohim. They no doubt had the law memorized, but failed to see its spiritual dimensions. Instead, they turned it into a means of enhancing their own power and wealth. Therefore Elohim sent his prophets to call the people back to true observance of the law. The prophets' task was to apply the law to their own situation. Their message was founded on the law they struck out at its misapplication. And so that's just some of the stuff, again, we see in the Theological Word Book. Just some great information on this root line, the shooting of the arrows, the coming down of rain, and the teaching of the Torah and the laws and the commands from a place that is solely and completely for Yahweh Elohim himself. Hallelujah. So let's just take a look at a few verses. Psalm 25, verse 8. Good and straight is Yah, therefore he teaches sinners in the way. 1 Samuel 12, verses 20 to 25. But Shemuel said to the people, do not fear. You have done all this evil. Only do not turn aside from following Yah, and you shall serve Yah with all your heart. And do not turn aside after worthless, which do not profit or deliver, for they are worthless. Don't turn aside to them. Keep on the straight path. For Yah would not cast away his people for his great name's sake, seeing it has pleased Yah to make you his people. Also, as for me, far be it from me that I should sin against Yah in ceasing to pray for you, but I shall teach Yarah you the good and straight way. How's he going to do that? By bending the bow of his tongue to truth. Only fear Yah, and you shall serve him in truth with all your heart. For consider what marvels he has done for you. But if you persist in doing evil, being dysfunctional, both you and your sovereign are consumed. And again we see of the priests under the King of Righteousness during the millennial reign in the millennial kingdom. And they are to teach my people the difference between the set apart and the profane, and make them know what is clean and what is unclean. It all boils down to teaching truth or teaching falsehood, rightly handling the word of truth, not dividing it up into pieces, but rightly handling it and dissecting it and expounding upon it to show people how to be clean and pure before Yah, and looking into the deep things that Yah has given us to consider all these things. So let's take a look at Exodus 24:12. And Yah said to Moshe, come up to me on the mountain and be there, while I give Eltah tables of stone, Torot, commandments, which I have written. Teach them. Moshe was to teach all the Torah, which comes from Yarah, the commands. He was to shoot them, bend the bow of his tongue, and teach them, shoot them from his mouth, coming from the concrete of rain. The only thing that was removed was something that already said it was going to be set to the side, which was the Levitical priesthood and the sacrifices at that time. The tzitzits were not done away with. Other commands, laws, statutes, precepts, rules, and regulations, which cause you to run the race legitimately, were not done away with. And the priesthood and its sacrifices were all foreshadows for our instruction and for our teaching, which was the entirety of the Tanakh. We cannot divide the word. If the word is divided, our Messiah is divided, and that is impossible. All of him works together. He is one. He is Echad. Psalm 64, verses 1 through 10. Hear my voice, O Elohim, in my meditation. Guard my life from the threats of the enemy. Hide me from the secret plans of evildoers, from the tumult of the workers of wickedness, who sharpen their tongue like a sword, and aim their arrows a bitter word, to shoot in ambush at someone blameless. They shoot at him suddenly and do not fear. What are they shooting? Words. What should we be shooting in truth? Words. They arm themselves with an evil word. They talk of hiding snares. They have said, who sees them? What are they trying to ensnare you and keep you from? The first resurrection. They do not want you to be delivered. They do not want you to run the race legitimately. There could be different reasons for that on a physical, fleshly, natural level. But all in all, the enemy wants to keep you from the kingdom. He truly wants to lead all the world astray with these words, twisting everything ever so slightly, that if you're not so familiar with the truth, even when a counterfeit looms on the horizon, we will not recognize it. They have said, who sees them? They search out unrighteousness. We have perfected a well-searched out plan. For the inward part of man and heart are deep. That's why they shoot their arrow at it, because they got to get in there deep. But Elohim does shoot at them with an arrow. Their wounds shall be sudden, in a wink of time, and they cause one to stumble. Their own tongue is against them. All who see them flee away, and all men fear and declare the work of Elohim, and they shall wisely consider what he has done. The righteous rejoice in Yah, and shall take refuge in him. And all the upright in heart praise him. All those who are straight and pressing that which was from the beginning, praise him. They shine forth through their words and their actions like a light shining. And what does it take to make a rainbow? It takes the light that is in us and the raining down of the Torah, or the shooting of the arrow, the rain coming from our mouths by the shooting of the arrow, by the teaching of the truth, combined with the light, comes out and combines everything all together. So we shine forth his marvelous light. The light of Yah has come into us and refracts. The light refracts on its way into a new substance. As it mixes with the rain coming out of our mouth, the arrows that we're shooting, the words of Torah, it refracts back out of us as a substance. We must be reflecting and refracting and distributing this word in its entirety. It all comes together and makes a beautiful picture in all areas of our life. We are to be leading people to the deliverance of Yahweh Elohim. Again, right now in the first resurrection, because there is a promise that everything one day will come to a rest, where there will be no more death, no more tears, no more crying, no more pain. There is no end to the rainbow, because there is no end to his word. We need to be speaking it entirely in its proper truth and handling it so people can run the race legitimately. Below this, in the comment section, in the description box, I'm going to place 3 videos on 3 of the colors that are in the rainbow, just so you can kind of start to think about these things and consider how and what we should be teaching the entire word of truth. Hallelujah.